Good evening and welcome to the December 13th edition of Office Hours presented by the Maryland Center for Collegiate Financial Wellness. My name is Dr. Tisa Silver Kennedy, and I thank you so much for joining me for this evening's edition. There has been a lot going on this year, so we're going to change up the format just a bit for this session to really talk about the income-driven repayment adjustment and the steps that borrowers need to take in order to make sure that they're on track to benefit from the adjustment, but also maximizing the benefits that come along with this adjustment, because it's set to expire December 31st of this year. So if you bear with me for just a moment, I'm going to share my screen, and then we can go ahead and get into this evening's presentation. All right, so I'm going to tell you a bit about the center first, and then we'll talk about office hours, and then we'll dive into questions from our community. So the Maryland Center for Collegiate Financial Wellness was founded in July of 2021 with an ambitious mission for all college and career school students in the state of Maryland. And that vision is for them to be able to achieve these 6 pillars of collegiate financial wellness. Those are being creditworthy, ready, resilient, empowered, successful, and thriving. If this sounds like a vision that you would like to learn more about, I strongly encourage you to visit us online at mccfw.org, and you can stay in the loop about our programs and events by joining our mailing list at mccfw.org/contact. Now, before I get into the detailed information for this evening, I just wanted to share that Office Hours is our free semi-monthly virtual student loan clinic that provides borrowers with a trusted venue to help them navigate student loans and prepare for financial success beyond repayment. I must say that Office Hours is presented for informational purposes only and should not be construed as financial or legal advice. We do our best to give you the most up-to-date information. However, there are a lot of moving parts here in this student loan space, and everyone's journey to that zero balance is different. So you want to make sure that you have communicated with your lender, your servicers, and also take into account information that you hear from sources such as the Maryland Center for Collegiate Financial Wellness, so that you can combine all the information to make the most informed decision for your personal financial circumstance. Okay, now that that's out of the way, I just wanted to share a couple of quick updates before we move on to talk really deeply about the IDR adjustment. First is that we'd love to come back and share victories with you. We have had several victories come as a result of public service loan forgiveness over the past couple of weeks. These are just a few of them, but we had an educator, a 20-plus year educator, who has now had $188,000 worth of debt canceled, another educator with $106,000, and another career public servant in the nonprofit space have $105,000 canceled. So the pace has definitely picked up, and these are borrowers that we worked with in the spring, around March or April, who had consolidated and were waiting for an update. And in a way, really last week, they received these letters to let them know that they have met the requirements for public service loan forgiveness, and they've had the remaining balance of their direct loans cleared as a result of their commitment to working in public service. So congratulations to those victors. We're happy to have been a part of that victory journey. As for events, it has been quite a busy time since the last time we gathered for Office Hours. I want to thank the city of Washington, D.C. for inviting me to be a part of a webinar for their Financially Fit DC platform. I was able to talk about student loans along with their acting student loan ombudsman, Andrea McCargo. And we had a great conversation, again, trying to spread the word as much as possible about the income-driven repayment adjustment, but also helping people make more informed decisions about paying for higher ed before they borrow federal student loans. We had a similar webinar with the National College Attainment Network. And just earlier today, we had a webinar hosting Maryland's acting student loan ombudsman, Ms. Amy Hennon. And we were able to, again, dive deeply into that IDR adjustment, as the deadline is currently set for December 31st of 2023. And we want to make sure that borrowers know, especially Marylanders, the steps that they need to take to get on track and maximize their benefits from this one-time special period called the IDR adjustment. So I've already given you a disclaimer. I'm going to skip over this again and then go right into what I hope to accomplish during today's edition of Office Hours. There are three things. We're focusing on the IDR adjustment. First, we want to tell you exactly where to go and what to do to determine if your loans are eligible for the IDR adjustment. Next, we want to help you get on track to benefit. And finally, we want to make sure that not only are you on track, but you know which steps to take to maximize your benefits during this one-time adjustment. So before we get to the IDR adjustment, I want to just make it very clear that the IDR adjustment is not the same program as the Biden-Harris Student Debt Relief Plan. The Biden-Harris Student Debt Relief Plan is that plan that would have offered up to $20,000 in outright cancellation per eligible borrower, and that application came out late last year. That plan was blocked by the Supreme Court earlier this year, and so it is not moving forward. There were millions of people who completed applications for this plan, but those applications will not be processed. There is no benefit coming because the plan was ultimately struck down by the Supreme Court. So if you filled out an application and were thinking, well, this is all that I need to do to be eligible, that was true for that particular plan. But now that that plan is not happening, you need to make sure that you can take an inventory of your loans to see which remaining benefits you might be eligible for. And that's what leads us to the IDR adjustment as well as public service loan forgiveness. So for the IDR adjustment, there is no dollar cap on the amount of debt that a borrower can have canceled. Up to the entire remaining balance of a loan can be canceled if the person has met the requirements of the program. But eligibility for these benefits depends on the types of loans you have. So in this chart, you'll see that for the IDR adjustment, direct loans are eligible, federally held loans are eligible, commercially held federal student loans are not eligible, but they can become eligible if they're consolidated into the direct loan program. I've included public service loan forgiveness on this list because that's really our specialty, helping public servants get in the pipeline to have their debts forgiven in exchange for at least 10 years of service. But any credit that is earned toward income-driven repayment, including credit that's earned through the adjustment, can be applied to PSLF as long as the borrower has documented their employment in public service. So if you're interested in the IDR adjustment and you are a public servant, then it's possible that you could have your loans canceled even earlier because of the public service loan forgiveness program. And we'll dive into the mechanics of this in just a little bit. But with public service loan forgiveness, it only applies to direct loans. If you have federally held or commercially held loans, they could become eligible for PSLF after they've been consolidated into the direct loan program. So the IDR adjustment is what we're going to focus on tonight. That's definitely broader because it does not require a career in public service, and it also does not require any application. It's out there, and for people who have direct and federally held loans, they will be included in it automatically. So I want to rewind just a little bit and talk about what the adjustment is and why the adjustment is happening. So with all income-driven repayment plans, they have a provision for cancellation written into the rules. And that cancellation is supposed to occur after a borrower has been in repayment for 20 or 25 years. Whether it's 20 or 25 years depends on the types of loans borrowed and the type of income-driven repayment plan the borrower is enrolled in. So for example, income contingent repayment, ICR. ICR is supposed to provide cancellation of the remaining balance after a borrower has been enrolled and making payments in that plan for 25 years. Another one, revised pay as you earn, which is transitioning over to SAVE, saving on a valuable education. For repay and save, cancellation is supposed to come on undergraduate loans after a borrower has been enrolled in this plan and making payments for 20 years. If there are graduate or professional school loans involved, then that threshold jumps up to 25 years. The point of all of this is that cancellation is supposed to happen after the borrower has reached this threshold of 20 or 25 years. And unfortunately, it did not happen as I just described it. And because it did not happen as it was supposed to, the Biden administration has implemented this IDR adjustment to go back and attempt to correct what did not happen the way that it should have. So in April of last year, the Department of Education announced the IDR adjustment. It's a one-time update that will give all borrowers who have direct loans and federally held loans a payment count to inform them of the progress they've made toward IDR cancellation milestones. Those milestones, again, are 20 or 25 years, but when you receive payment counts, they don't come in years, they come in months. So the relevant milestones are 240 months or 300 months, depending on the types of loans you took out, undergrad or graduate, and the income-driven repayment plan that you're enrolled in. So they announced this last year in April, and as far as the implementation is concerned, that was kind of shared as, well, this is what's to come. So in the summer of 2023, that's when we began to see some action. We actually started to see people getting their loans canceled. These are not necessarily public servants. These are just people who had been in repayment for at least 20 years, 20 or 25 years, depending on, again, the types of loans they had and the plans, not necessarily the plans they were enrolled in, but definitely the types of loans they had. So July, I believe, is when the first batch of messages went out to people who were going to have their loans forgiven the following month. And since then, we've seen it happen every other month. There's a notification that is supposed to go out in 1 month, and then the next month, the cancellation actually occurs. And so we've been able to see many people who've been in repayment for at least 20 years finally have their debt canceled, even if they weren't enrolled in an income-driven repayment plan. And that's a direct result of this adjustment. So for those of us who are definitely not at that milestone yet, we should expect to see a payment count sometime in 2024. The point of the payment count is to let us know where we stand relative to that 240-month milestone or the 300-month milestone. There are many people who have made it to and through these milestones, but might have loans that are not included in the IDR adjustment. So tonight we're going to walk through determining which loans are eligible and then next steps to make sure that loans are in the pipeline to receive a payment count, or for those who have already exceeded the 20 or 25 year milestone, cancellation is in store for them. Okay, so with the adjustment, the department is looking back at repayment history to see where people stand relative to the 20 or 25 year milestones. And many people hear this and say, oh, well, I know I haven't been paying for 20 years, or I know I missed a lot of payments, whatever the case may be. During this adjustment, what counts as a payment is not what we're used to counting as a payment. Under original rules, a payment that actually counts toward this cancellation would be a payment that was made, on time, in full, while you were enrolled in one of the qualifying income-driven repayment plans. But during this adjustment, the Office of Federal Student Aid has said that any months in a repayment status, regardless of the payments made, loan type, or repayment plan, count as a payment toward reaching those IDR cancellation milestones. And remember, we're looking for 240 months or 300 months. So any month in a repayment status, regardless of the payments made, the loan type, or the repayment plan. Furthermore, forbearances can count. They've been very clear about lengthy forbearances. When I say lengthy forbearance, that would be 12 consecutive months or more, or 36 cumulative months or more. If they count the history, repayment history of your loan and find those conditions, then you would get credit for all months in forbearance. Deferments can also count, except for in-school deferments, because during in-school deferments, loans were technically not in repayment. Before 2013, deferments, except for the in-school deferment, can qualify as a payment. In 2013, up until now, economic hardship and military deferments can count. The only periods that we know for sure do not qualify are grace periods, periods of default, and bankruptcy, as well as periods in an in-school deferment. So If you are a person who's had loans for a pretty long time and your repayment history hasn't been, 100% smooth sailing, that's okay. There is a strong possibility that you can gain a lot of credit toward income-driven repayment cancellation based on the rules of this one-time update called the IDR adjustment. So here's where we get into the important things. How can borrowers benefit from the IDR adjustment? There are two key steps to determine your eligibility and make sure that you benefit from this one-time update. The first step is to verify your loan types. The second step is to consolidate when necessary, or in some cases, it's not necessary, but it's helpful. And we'll walk through those in just a minute. Both of these steps are going to require you to log into studentaid.gov. That is the online home of the Office of Federal Student Aid. You can visit the site at studentaid.gov and log in. If you're unable to log in, there is an option to retrieve your username and password so that you can get in. But you definitely need to get in there because that is the best place to see all of your federal student loans, determine which types of loans you have, and then complete the consolidation application if necessary or helpful. So let's go to the first key question here to help us identify eligible loan types. The first question to ask is, are your loans federal or private? Sometimes the line between federal or private can be pretty blurry, so I want to make sure we're very clear about what it means to have a federal student loan versus what it means to have a private student loan. If you log into studentaid.gov, after you complete the two-step verification and get to the dashboard, if you have federal student loans, you will see a blue, looks like a blue wheel. And on the inside of that wheel, you will see the balance of your loans. Now, like I said, if there's a balance there, you have federal student loans. If there is not a balance there and you know that you have loans, then your loans are probably private student loans. The only other situation that I've seen where someone had federal student loans, but no balance was listed, was when someone had recently consolidated and their account balance was temporarily and briefly reset to zero. So if you go into studentaid.gov, you know that you haven't consolidated recently and you see nothing there, then I would strongly encourage you to get a copy of your credit report because that's where your private student loan debt will be visible. But if you have a balance inside of that blue wheel, then that means that you do have federal student loans, and federal student loans are eligible for the benefits that we're talking about tonight. Now, for some federal student loans, there's going to be an extra step that's involved. So that's what we're going to figure out with this key question number 2. That is, are your federal student loans ed-held? Ed-held means held by the Department of Education. So within studentaid.gov, you're again going to go to the dashboard and locate the My Loan Servicer section. When you click on View More, you'll be given a list of all of your student loan servicers. And what we're looking for is Department of Ed. If you see Department of Ed in front of the name of your servicer, then that lets you know that your student loans are held by the Department of Education. Also, if you see Default Management Collection System, that means that the loans are held by the Department of Education as well, but the loans are in default. But those loans can be eligible for the benefits that we're discussing. They can get on the path to be eligible for the IDR adjustment and public service loan forgiveness. So this question is important because if your loans are held by the Department of Education, that means they are going to be included in the IDR adjustment, and there's no additional step you would need to take in order to receive a payment count. If the answer is no, and your loans are not held by the Department of Education, that means that they are privately held or commercially held. They're still federal student loans, but they're held by a private lender. So as a result, those commercially held or privately held loans are not included in the IDR adjustment. However, they can be consolidated to gain access to the adjustment. Now, the deadline for the greatest benefit is currently set for December 31st, 2023. So with that deadline, the guidance is to complete the consolidation application online at studentaid.gov by December 31st of 2023, because as of this evening, December 13th, that is the deadline that has been set. by the Department of Education. So if you see that your loans are not held by the Department of Education and you want them to be considered during this IDR adjustment, then you would need to go ahead and consolidate them to get on track. All right. I have one more key question. This is specifically for public servants, and that question is, are your loans direct loans? So PSLF is exclusively for direct loans. And to find out if your loans are direct, you'll need to do a bit more digging. So once you're inside of studentaid.gov in that My Aid section, you're going to see a little blue box toward the upper right corner that says View Details. If you click on that, you can scroll down to a section called Loan Types, which is this image right here in the middle. This is a list of the different types of loans that you have. And for each type of loan that has a dollar balance, you want to click on that little downward pointing arrow so that you can expand the list and see the actual names of your loans. So in this image, we are looking at the subsidized loans, and we can see that there's a direct one with a balance. There's also a FELP loan with a balance. If you're interested in public service loan forgiveness, that FELP loan would not be eligible for PSLF until you consolidated it into the direct loan program. So for each category of loan types, you want to expand the list, and then you want to review each individual loan that still has a balance outstanding. And if you see anything other than the word direct, that lets you know that the loan is not eligible for public service loan forgiveness, but it could become eligible by consolidating. And of course, the guidance right now is to complete the application to consolidate by December 31st of this year. So let's talk about consolidation, because that's a term that I have said quite a bit this evening. Consolidation is going to pay off one or more existing loans and create one new loan for the same overall amount. Now, some people read that and say, well, how can you consolidate one loan? Well, you can consolidate one loan with the federal government. Some people consolidated their loans in the past and might now have a FELP consolidation loan. A FELP consolidation loan is just one loan, but for it to gain access to the IDR Adjustment and PSLF, it can be consolidated into the direct loan program. So it is possible to consolidate just one loan through studentaid.gov. Also want to make clear that when I talk about consolidation, I'm not talking about refinancing with a private lender. I'm talking about consolidating federal student loans, again, with the federal government. And that application is online at studentaid.gov. Just want to point out a couple of myths that I often hear from people as a reason not to move forward with consolidation. The first one is that people think consolidation is going to cost them something, whether it's an application fee or an origination fee. But consolidation through the federal government is free. There is no charge. The application is online at studentaid.gov, and you can complete the application fully online once you log in. Also, I hear from a lot of people that, they don't want to consolidate because their interest rate is going to go through the roof, but that's simply not true. For federal student loans, your interest rate will not skyrocket after you consolidate. The interest rate on a consolidation loan is the weighted average of the existing interest rates on your individual loans before you consolidate. So the interest rate is not going to skyrocket. It's going to be somewhere in between the lowest rate within your portfolio and the highest rate in your portfolio. The most that could rise is a little bit less than 1/8 of a percentage point, just due to the way that the government rounds interest rates. Next, though, is something that's true, and that's that your outstanding interest will capitalize. When interest capitalizes, that is the process of interest becoming principal. So if you're about to consolidate and you have principal and interest, after you consolidate, that old interest will be a part of the principal on the new consolidation loan. So that does cause you to have a larger principal balance. That's because the interest has been added in. The overall amount that you owe is still the same. It's just the composition of it has changed. And if the ultimate goal is to get on track for forgiveness, especially with public service loan forgiveness, then you just have to deal with the capitalization to get on track to meet your goal. Once again, we're talking about consolidating with the federal government, not with a private lender, because if you consolidate your loans with a private lender, you will lose access to all benefits for federal student loan borrowers. That includes access to income-driven repayment plans, public service loan forgiveness, and other programs. So we're talking strictly about consolidating at studentaid.gov. Before you consolidate, you might have loans with, as this image depicts, let's say you have loans with 4 different servicers. Each loan has its own terms, it's unique. After you consolidate, those loans still have the same amounts, but they've all been wrapped up into one larger loan. And that larger loan takes on pieces of each of the individual loans. And that's how we arrive at that balance, as well as that weighted average interest rate. So if you have to consolidate, here's what consolidation looks like. To get on track for the IDR adjustment, people who have commercially held loans must consolidate them, or else they will not be considered for a payment count during the IDR adjustment. So in this image that you see on the right, we're looking at a person who has 2 loans. The first loan is a direct loan for $30,000. The second loan is a commercially held FELP loan for $40,000. Once these loans have been consolidated, each individual loan is paid off and one new loan is originated for the same total amount, $70,000. That $70,000 loan is now a direct consolidation loan, and that entire consolidation loan is now eligible to receive a payment count during the IDR adjustment. So when you complete the application for consolidation, I just wanted to share with you a few of the questions that you'll be asked. The first one is, do you want to delay your processing? Right now, we are operating under a deadline of December 31st to apply to consolidate for the greatest benefits. So when they ask you whether you want to delay your processing, you probably want to say no, because you want to get it in before the deadline. Second point is that with the IDR adjustment is using some very relaxed rules to count what qualifies as credit toward IDR cancellation. That's backward looking. Looking forward, you would need to be enrolled in an income-driven repayment plan for your future payments to count. So within that consolidation application, there's the opportunity to apply for an income-driven repayment plan, and that would make sure that you're on track for your future payments to keep on counting toward IDR cancellation. Next is, if there's the opportunity for you to transfer your information from the IRS, that makes your application process much easier. There is guidance in that application that says the transfer is not for people with FELP loans. So if you have FELP loans and you're completing this application, you should make sure that you have documentation ready to submit. And for documentation of income, usually a W-2 or a pay stub will suffice. There's a list of accepted documents included. And you can also self-certify your income, which is just stating what you make, and also that you're not lying about what you make, and so that they can use that level of income to determine what your payment would be under an income-driven repayment plan. The last thing is that, as I mentioned before, we're currently operating under a deadline of December 31st to achieve the greatest benefit. So the application is online at studentaid.gov, and if you need to consolidate because you have commercially held loans, it would be best to take action. All right, so the previous slide, we discussed who needs to consolidate, and those are people that have commercially held loans, because those loans will not be included in the IDR adjustment unless they're consolidated into the direct loan program. Now we're going to talk about people who might want to consolidate. So people with Department of Education held loans do not need to consolidate to get on track for the IDR adjustment. Their loans are already going to be included, so next year at some point they'll get a payment count. However, there's some people who have all of their loans are held by the Department of Education, but the loans were entering repayment at different times, so they have differing lengths in repayment history. In this example, we have a person with 2 direct loans. That means both loans are going to receive a payment count through the IDR adjustment. However, one loan has 96 months of history. The other loan has 144 months of history. Prior to this IDR adjustment, if a person consolidated these loans, that consolidation loan would start off at 0 in terms of a payment count. And they would have to start with payment 1 and work their way up to that 20 or 25-year milestone. But during this adjustment, you can consolidate these loans together, and the direct consolidation loan, the results would be credited with the amount of history attached to the loan in the portfolio that has the lengthiest repayment history. So in this example, we have one loan with 96 months of history, another loan with 144 months of history. If a person applies to consolidate these loans by December 31st of this year, then the new consolidation loan would be credited with 144 months of history. That means that the loan that had 96 months of history has now been sped up 4 years to meet the same pace of that oldest loan in the portfolio. Now, at some point in 2024, this calculation is expected to shift away from what you see on the screen, which is that the loan with the greatest amount of history carries the entire consolidation loan. They're going to shift to a weighted average formula. So that definitely will not be as generous. And that's why the guidance has been to complete that application to consolidate by the deadline provided by the Department of Education. And currently that deadline is December 31st of this year. So as a refresher, there are these 3 main student loan forgiveness programs that we have talked about extensively over the past year. But I just wanted to make sure that everyone is just truly aware of the fact that access to benefits depends upon the types of loans that you have. So if you have Department of Education held loans, for the income-driven repayment adjustment, there's no action that's necessary. Your Department of Education held loans will receive a payment count once those counts are issued next year. And if you are a person who has met the 20 or 25-year threshold before the payment counts are issued, then you should expect to see those loans that have crossed the threshold canceled. If you are interested in public service loan forgiveness, then that would require an extra step because public service loan forgiveness is only good for direct loans. So if you have any non-direct loans, you would need to consolidate them to get on track for public service loan forgiveness. And the current guidance is to submit the application by December 31st of this year. If you have commercially held loans, you will be required to take action if you want those loans to be considered during the IDR adjustment. So if you logged into studentaid.gov, you did not see Department of Ed in front of your servicer's name, and your loans are indeed commercially held, you need to consolidate them so that they can be included in the IDR adjustment. Now, for some people, what they owe is so small relative to what they earn that after they go through the consolidation application and before they submit, they see that their payment is going to be really high and they decide, you know what, I'll just pay this thing off. I don't even want to be included in the IDR adjustment. And that's perfectly fine if that's your situation. But if you have commercially held loans and you want them to be included in the IDR adjustment, then you must consolidate them for them to be counted. If you're interested in public service loan forgiveness, the same guidance stands. If your loans are commercially held, they will not qualify for public service loan forgiveness. They would have to be consolidated into the direct loan program to become eligible. And that application is online at studentaid.gov/PSLF. All right. So as with each edition of Office Hours, we like to close things out with options for accountability because some people have, issues with the servicers that it's difficult to get resolved in a timely fashion. So you've got several options. There's the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. There's also the United States Department of Education Ombudsman. If you're applying for PSLF, there's a special process called a PSLF reconsideration request if you find that your qualifying payment count is not accurate. Also, at the state level, Maryland is fortunate to have a student loan ombudsman. And the student loan ombudsman's office can assist with student loan servicer problems that include failure by the servicer to communicate with the borrower, errors in crediting principal and interest payments, misapplied payments, inaccurate interest rate calculations, billing errors, loan consolidations or modification errors, and or inappropriate collection activity or tactics. So you can definitely visit each of those sites to see which one is most appropriate for your concern. But these options are only to be used after you have given a good faith effort to resolve the issue with your servicer. And if your servicer has not complied or if it's taking a really long time for anything to move, then you may want to engage one of these third parties for some extra help with moving things forward. As for the state of Maryland, if you are currently in repayment and have a complaint about your student loan servicer, you can visit the Maryland Student Loan Ombudsman's website online and file a complaint there through the Department of Labor. Maryland also has a Student Loan Borrower's Bill of Rights, and you can read that Bill of Rights to learn more about the protections to which Maryland borrowers are entitled and the obligations of student loan servicers. And again, all that information is available online at the state's Department of Labor, and you will see those links in the chat. Before we close, I just wanted to share some informational resources for you. First and foremost is the Office of Federal Student Aid. All the programs that we discussed this evening are for federal student loans, and the best place to go, or at least to start for information about your loans, is with the lender. So if your loans are federal student loans, that website is studentaid.gov. Once you've been able to log in, you can verify your loan types. You can complete the application to consolidate. You can also apply for public service loan forgiveness. And if you need to apply for an income-driven repayment plan separately, that application is also within studentaid.gov. Next, the Maryland Center for Collegiate Financial Wellness. We are online at mccfw.org, and we've got a website dedicated to public service loan forgiveness that also talks about the IDR adjustment. Because again, any credit that's earned through the IDR adjustment toward a payment count can be used as time or credit toward public service loan forgiveness once you have documented your qualifying employment. So any credit you earn through the IDR adjustment can be applied toward public service loan forgiveness after you have completed the PSLF application to document your employment for a qualifying organization. The center is also online. We have a YouTube channel where we post these office hours videos and annotate them so you can go straight to the content that is most useful to you. I need to change this to X away from Twitter, but we are also on X, Instagram, and Facebook at the MCCFW. So please do like, subscribe, and engage with us. And lastly, I'd like to share a place I like to go just to read questions that people have as they're going through the public service loan forgiveness application process. And that is the PSLF mega thread on Reddit, which is managed by Betsy Mayotte, who's the founder of the Institute of Student Loan Advisors. You can visit Reddit. There's a PSLF mega thread. There's student loans. There's, I think there's a mega thread on the IDR adjustment or just IDR in general. Either way, there's a lot of content out there. And the benefit of that is that you can see what people are going through right now as they're sharing their experiences, good and bad, and also posing questions for community members to help them. So if you're interested in the real life application experience or borrowing experience with many of these programs, that Reddit mega thread is a great place to go. All right, so I have been taking a peek at the chat and comments throughout this evening's presentation. I haven't seen any thus far. So I want to thank you all for tuning in and say that, you know, this must have just been so clear that there are no questions remaining. That's wishful thinking. I know this is a complex subject, one that can also be intimidating. So I just urge you to take stock of your loans by going to studentaid.gov. Also, take a look at our YouTube channel and see if there are any additional questions you might have that we've already answered. And if not, you can reach out to us online at mccfw.org/contact and submit a question, and we will do our best to get back to you. Now, I will say it is December 13th, and right now we are working on a deadline of December 31st. So turnaround time might not be immediate because we're seeing a lot of demand right now. And we also have a lot of in-person events going on. We're working on the No More, O Less project, which is specifically for pre-K through 12th grade educators in Prince George's County and Northeast Baltimore City. So we're actually making school visits with our team to help educators on site get on track for benefits such as the IDR adjustment and public service loan forgiveness. So we've got a lot going on. I thank you all for joining me for yet another edition of Office Hours. I hope that we have done a good job of answering your questions and also clearing up some myths about the IDR adjustment, perhaps public service loan forgiveness. as well as consolidation, because that's something that there are a lot of misconceptions about. I'm going to hang out just for about one more minute to see if we have any other questions that come in. I do have a question that has come up a couple of times, because people are starting to receive their qualifying payment counts from MOHELA, and these are specifically people who applied maybe 7 or 8 months ago. Some of them are seeing payment counts that show a qualifying payment of more than 120, but the language in the letter still speaks as if they have not met the requirements of public service loan forgiveness. Sometimes we see these letters go out that include the payment count, but it's not the congratulations letter. And I don't have any like inside track, to the servicer, but from what I've seen, this type of correspondence is usually followed soon after by the congratulations letter. For those of you that are uncertain, you could take a chance and call MOHELA to see if you can get a representative on the phone to confirm for you that your qualifying payment count is indeed over 120 and that the discharge of your debt is something that is forthcoming. So if you have a qualifying payment count that's over 120, congratulations in advance. You should be getting official word of congratulations. You've met the requirements of the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. You should be getting that congratulations letter soon. But I totally understand why you'd want to wait to see the congratulations letter, because that's what makes it official. I do see a question there that says, it seems your loan servicer changes when loans are consolidated. Why is that? So your loan servicer can change when you consolidate now. At this point, with the consolidation application, you have the option to select your own servicer. So let's say, for example, you are with Advantage now. Within that consolidation application, you're given the option to stay with the servicer that you currently have, or you can select another servicer. The one exception to that rule is if you indicate that you're interested in public service loan forgiveness. Within the consolidation application now, there is a question that says, are you interested in public service loan forgiveness, or are you consolidating for public service loan forgiveness? If that's the case, then MOHELA is going to be automatically selected for you. And the reason that MOHELA becomes your servicer is because that is the only servicer that is responsible for the public service loan forgiveness program. So if you had, let's say, Nelnet, Ed Financial, Advantage, whoever you had, if you say yes, you are interested in public service loan forgiveness, you will change servicers, because there's only one servicer that manages that program, and that is MOHELA. For anyone else who is consolidating, if you're not indicating interest in public service, then you actually have the choice to select the servicer that you want. And that could be the servicer that you're with or another one. Thank you for that question. I am perusing the chat again. I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything. Oh, I see it. Thank you. Oh, you are welcome. You are so welcome. That's a very good question. A lot of people wonder, why do I have to have MOHELA? Why didn't I have a choice? And it's because you're interested in public service loan forgiveness. They're the only servicer that covers that program. Okay. All right. Let me check to see if we have anything else. I've got one more thing that has come up quite a bit. And that has to do with Parent Plus loans. There are a lot of people who have heard about the double consolidation loophole. We have made several videos answering questions about that, and they're looking at the timeline and saying, well, it's December 31st. Should I still, December 13th, excuse me, and the deadline is December 31st. Is this something that I can still pursue? As of right now, pursuing it with the December 31st deadline would not work for you, because today is December 13th. We'd have 18 days we would need for the first consolidation loan to disperse, and then we would have to complete the second consolidation loan, the second round of consolidating. We'd have to complete that application by December 31st, and 18 days just isn't enough turnaround time for that. The double consolidation loophole itself is not going away. until July 1st of 2025. But if there were people who were looking at getting this process wrapped up before the current deadline of December 31st to get that greatest benefit of the IDR adjustment, if you're just starting today, it's not possible to meet the 12/31 deadline. So for parents, stay tuned. There are still ways that you can navigate this process to work toward getting the lowest payment as possible, depending on whether you have all Parent Plus loans or if you have Parent Plus loans as well as student loans for yourself. Completing the double consolidation loophole process, if you are just starting today, would not be possible at this point to meet that 12/31 deadline, though. I see another question that popped up. Do I still need to submit the PSLF application if I chose that option during consolidation? Absolutely. That is a great question. So the consolidation application has undergone a lot of changes in the past few months. And one of those changes is asking people, are you consolidating for public service loan forgiveness, or are you interested in public service loan forgiveness, and routing people to MOHELA? So that takes care of the servicing question, so that your loans will go directly to the servicer who's responsible for the public service loan forgiveness program. But that part of the application does not take care of verifying your employment. So even though you selected an interest in public service within the consolidation application, you would still need to complete the actual application for public service loan forgiveness. And that application is online at studentaid.gov/PSLF. The PSLF application itself is just, it's an employment verification. So it's completely separate from that consolidation application and the choice of servicers. It's a job verification that you can complete online at studentaid.gov/PSLF. And you can also complete it 100% electronically if you're able to have the person who's verifying your employment allow you to use their email address so that they can complete the form with DocuSign. So definitely two totally different application processes. Consolidation is one that takes care of consolidating your loans and selecting a servicer. The PSLF application is separate. It's a job verification, but you need both of these two to make sure that you are on track to benefit from PSLF. And I see the thank you. Oh, you are so welcome. Thank you for joining us tonight and giving us these questions, because chances are, if one person has the question, there are many more that have the same question, but don't ask, or maybe don't know how to ask, or don't want to do it on social media. So we appreciate you for chiming in and asking the questions, because this information is definitely going to be useful for other people who are looking to consolidate and apply for PSLF. All right. Let's see. Do we have any other questions out there before we wrap things up? Okay, let me check. All right, it looks like we are all clear. So we're wrapping things up a bit early this evening, but as always, I want to thank you so much for joining us for another edition of Office Hours. This is the December 13th edition. Next, we have December 27th as the date that Office Hours would normally occur, but that's during the holiday break. So we might not get together then. We may get together a bit earlier to close out the year, but stay tuned to see if we do stick with that December 27th date, because I don't know about you all, but I need a break, okay? All right, so again, thank you so much for joining us for this edition of Office Hours. We appreciate you tuning in, and we appreciate your engagement with us on social media, including our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/@TheMCCFW. If you have not done so, please drop by our YouTube page, like and subscribe. You can leave comments as well as questions, and we'll make sure to get back to you. Checking the chat one last time. Looks like we're clear. So with that, I bid you adieu. If I do not see you all again before the new year, I wish you a happy holiday season. I hope that it's enjoyable and that you're with people that you care about, but that you also take some time to do something to give yourself some rest and also invest in your own wellness. So thank you so much for joining us. And as always, until next time, be well.